I'm delighted to say the Limerick joint senior football captain Iain Corbett joins us on the line now this morning. Morning, Iain. How are things?
Morning, lads. How are you?
Keeping well. We're keeping well. Thanks for joining us. Big weekend last weekend for Newcastle West, your club. Famous victory. So it had to go to extra time against Clonmel Commercials, but any win against a team of that calibre, I mean, you're going to take it.
Yeah, look, it was a great day for the club. I suppose the last few years, kind of this group, we've had a few near misses in Munster club. We lost to two eventual winners in the first round. So it was great to get over the line. Like, we knew how good Clonmel were after their performance against Nemo, but went up there with plenty of belief, and thankfully we got over the line. Just about, but we got over the line anyway.
So, as I said, first Limerick side to reach the Munster Senior Football Final in 14 years. And of course you'll contest the Munster Final for the first time since 87. So it's Kerry's Kerins O'Rahilly's on Saturday 11th of December. So nice handy one in the final for you too, Iain.
I don't think any team that comes out of Kerry is going to be handy. Yeah, look, it's a very tough task again. But every team in this competition, in all the provincial competitions, they're county champions for a reason. They're going to be good sides. So it's a tough test, but one we're looking forward to.
Like, it strikes me, Newcastle West, so decent sized catchment area, I suppose, Iain, for people unfamiliar with the club. But when you won that first senior club with the club in 2015, your first since 1992 as a club, would you have been seen as underachievers given the size of the town, or would that have been seen as a relatively normal gap?
Well, I think we've only 6-1 in the club's history. I don't know, I suppose being the big town in Limerick, we kind of have that mentality of being townies and a bit soft. We'd be known to kind of get on each other's back in years gone by, but thankfully that's kind of changed the last few years. With a lad come down from Donegal and coaches, Anton McFadden in 2015, he kind of changed the whole mindset of the club. And I suppose even since he's left, the players that were involved have kind of continued that, and fellas are coming in now, young lads coming in, and they're buying into that mindset, I suppose.
What do you mean get on each other's back, Iain? You mean like within the club?
No, just on the field. And I suppose like someone might do something silly and get a red card. You know, it would have always been said, if you bring Newcastle down the stretch in a tight game, they'll probably lose it themselves rather than you having to beat them. And we did that in plenty of games, and we've done it a few times since, but we've definitely it's something we've improved at.
Did you sit down as a group and address it?
I just think we weren't hard enough on ourselves. Kind of when I was starting off, we look for soft excuses rather than looking at ourselves. Ultimately, we're the ones on the field. You can blame management, coaches, I suppose the committee if things weren't provided, but all them things were always provided. We were always well looked after. So we just had to really look at ourselves, and if we were losing games, it was probably down to us.
Is that stuff, because I'm sure there's plenty of club players at all levels, at all sports around the country listening in now and sort of wondering, how do you get from where you were to where you're at? Like, is it an easy fix? Is it like a deep cultural thing? Does it take a bit of time?
I wouldn't say it's easy. Like, we really, really trained hard. Anton would have been involved with that Donegal team in 2012, and I think he brought a lot of that training down. Like, we were out running in the field, like when there was no lights, it was pitch dark, and you could just see someone in a high-vis jacket at a line, and you had to run to that line and back. So it's just real. I suppose we really worked hard, and we knew we had that in the bank. So when games were in the melting pot, we knew we had that work done, and that kind of brought us over the line. And I think even in the last few years, it's something we've even improved further. We've become pretty good at winning tight games or just about surviving. And the last two games, we'd kick a score with the last kick of the game to get to extra time. So it's definitely a strength of the team.
That's definitely a positive to take in. You feel like, and even I remember you speaking before about the 2015 Munster quarter-final against Clonmel again, where you're 4 points up with 5 minutes left, and then you squander that lead, and Clonmel go on to win the Munster Championship. Like, you know, I'm sure you're not thinking about it directly when you're in normal time or in injury time at the weekend, but to go from that back in 2015 to dominating the stakes in injury time and the scoring when it really mattered last weekend must be quite nice when you think back to the disappointment of 7 years ago, for example.
Yeah, look, that was a tough day to take. We had the game won probably, and we just let it slip, and that was probably experience. It was our first time for everyone on that field that day from our club anyway. It was our first provincial game with a club. And I suppose we just froze coming down the home stretch. It was a bit different the weekend. We were the ones coming from behind and had to get the last gasp equaliser. But I suppose we just knew, going into the game, that no matter how far ahead we got, Clonmel could just turn it on. They did that just before half time. We were kind of comfortable. We were up 3 points, and they got 1-2 in about 3 minutes. But we responded well to that. Got a score before half time and got the first score after half time.
It was nearly like a World Cup match at the end. It was like 5 minutes of added time and then another 3 after that. It was like they were pulling from nowhere, and you weren't complaining too much. Obviously, when Rowan O'Connor kicked the equaliser, were you aware of the clock? Like, given the context of everything you've just been talking about, were you aware of the clock? Were you thinking about it? Were you talking about it?
Yeah, like we got a chance just before that. Emmett got through and it just dropped short, and I knew there was about a minute left, and Clonmel went down the field and we got a turnover, and then I suppose they were kind of just stop them. So it ended up getting 2 black cards, and there was kind of, the ref was dealing with a few things. So I knew it was gone over the 5, but I knew there was still time to be added. The ref probably might have allowed maybe an extra minute or so, but I suppose we were in there 45 kind of probing for that score, and that's the way football is in hurling. You're always kind of going to get that last attack. The minute we kicked the shot wide or got turned over, that was it. And thankfully Rowan popped up in front of the goals and kicked it over.
The club, Iain itself, Newcastle West, like, is it as Limerick is very much becoming a dual county as at the moment. I think last year was the first year both the football and hurling teams have been in the Munster final for quite some time, decades in fact. Like when you're starting off with the under 7s, under 8s on a Saturday morning or whatever with Newcastle West, are you playing both? Did you pick one? What was the scenario in the club, and what's it like today?
You'd play both, the whole way up. Both groups are usually kind of trained by the same people. You might have 1 or 2 different coaches in for hurling or football. We've about 14 dual players.
Right.
So we've a big crossover, and that was very difficult during the early parts of the year because Limerick plays a lot of games. Like, we had 5 group games in football, and the hurlers had 7 group games, championship games. Like, so that was really tough on the lads. But we've the same manager over hurling and football, so Jimmy managed that well. And I suppose in Newcastle anyway, there'll definitely be a big emphasis on both football and hurling.
I'm looking at the team, and I guess at club level you need those. Well, you need the young lads coming through, but you need the wily veterans as well. And Mike McMahon comes to mind. Like 1-3 man of the match in the county final. That, like, I know he turned 37 quite recently as well. So you look at players like that, I'm sure, Ian, on the team, and you're thinking that's why you need lads at club level to maybe give that extra year or 2 if they have it, because I mean you can't buy experience.
Yeah, I think Mike's the only one on the team that would have been at the 87 Munster final. So he might tell us a few tales about that over the next 2 weeks. Yeah, look, Mike's an incredible athlete, a dual player again. Like, played probably 9 or 10 weeks in a row of championship games, and I don't think Mike will be finished this year, or probably not next year. He just loves the club. His family is ingrained in the club. The McMahons would be a well-known name around Newcastle, and Mike will definitely play for as long as he's proving useful, and he's definitely proven useful this year so far. I've
seen it with my own club as well, where you've lads like that who are big target men and tall and can catch a high ball. Strikes me like the attacking mark might have been something that maybe, went right up Mike's alley, because that sort of rule coming in just makes him a dominant force. Yeah, look, I suppose to be realistic about it, there's probably not many men Mike Mack's size playing club football. Probably gives us a real outlet. But I suppose it kind of works both ways. Teams put such an emphasis on stopping Mike, maybe having a sweeper, possibly 2 at times, that it allows the space around the middle for, I suppose, the runners around the middle to get through and create chances when teams are preoccupied with Mike. We had Billy Lee on the show, since his tenure ended with Limerick, and to look, a fascinating character and someone who's done so much, as you well know, for Limerick football. You've got Ray Dempsey coming on board now this year, and look, the links were fairly strong between himself and Kevin McStay, I guess, for that Mayo gig. But a lot of people have a lot of good things to say about Ray Dempsey when it comes to coaching. Have you had many dealings with him so far, Ian, or how's that been? Because clearly there's an excitement there. I've spoke to Ray a few times. To be fair to him, he's kind of letting the few Newcastle lads that are involved with Limerick focus on the club at the moment. He's putting no pressure on us. So I suppose we're thankful for that. Look, it was a good appointment by the county board. Anyone that is right in the mix for the Mayo job is obviously going to have strong credentials.
And I suppose, look, it'll be up to Ray, his management team and the players to build on the good work that Billy has done over the past 6 years.
Does it, just looking at sort of recent Munster finals, Iain, like the Drumcollar Broadford 15 years ago, you've Monaleen, I think maybe since that, but it's not often that Limerick teams are getting to the Munster final. Is that a factor for you, or is it just that's it and we'll think about that another day, but for now we need to get about the business of trying to win one?
Yeah, look, I suppose we'll get a certain amount of praise for reaching the Munster final, but we're in a final to win it. That'll be the focus of the group for the next 2 weeks. Who knows when we'll get another chance to play in a final. Some of us might never get another chance to play in a club final, so we have to make the most of the opportunity while we're there.
Just on Limerick generally, I wondered, like, on the face of it, given the size of the county, the population, you would think that they should be more regularly up in the higher echelons of football in the country, and obviously promotion this year, and that I'm sure will help. Is it the competitiveness between, like, the rugby? It's obviously the city is a big soccer town. The hurling obviously coming on over the last few years. Is that the reason that Limerick are not more regularly up amongst the Division 1 teams or in the mix towards the end of the championship? Or what's your take on how they might, given what you've been talking to us a little bit earlier on about obviously how you've managed to advance things on the club level, how Limerick might advance more on the inter-county scene?
I think a lot of it is probably from underage. Unfortunately, Limerick have no schools playing Corny-Vurry. They had an amalgamation there for a few years, and it was giving young lads the opportunity to play football at the highest level. But I don't know who decided it, but they decided that amalgamations weren't allowed, and there's probably no school on its own in Limerick strong enough. But I suppose when we're competing with the Corks, Kerrys, I think Clonmel have a school in it, Flannans are in it. Like, I suppose it's just us and Waterford that don't have schools competing at that level. You see it in Limerick with the hurling. For a few years there was 3 or 4 schools playing Harty Cup. So I suppose that kind of puts massive emphasis then on the academy. And I suppose underage, then you've kids trying to play soccer, rugby, hurling, football. But I think it's something that's definitely improved. We're seeing lads coming through from the academy that have the strength and conditioning work done. And when I started, I'd have had very little strength and conditioning done prior to playing senior football. But thankfully that's kind of changing, and lads are more prepared rather than needing the 2 or 3 years to get ready for inter-county football. That
stuff in the schools is mad, isn't it? Like, that's should be the foundation basis for everything.
I suppose, like, it is disappointing. I suppose the GA should probably be doing more. That if Limerick don't have a school strong enough, they should be allowed to join 3 or 4 schools. I think, I could be wrong, that the Waterford colleges a few years ago had some amalgamation, and it was kind of an all-star team, and maybe 5 or 6 of them have ended up with all-stars. And I suppose the powers that be, the traditional schools, probably didn't like that, and it affected all the amalgamations. Like, it'd be so beneficial for 20 lads from Limerick to be playing Corny-Vurry, but unfortunately at the moment that isn't the case anyway.
I'm looking at the Division 2 teams set for next year in the league, Iain, and so yourselves and Louth, of course, promoted from Division 3. You had the Dubs and Kildare relegated from Division 1 to 2, and then you have Clare, Cork, Derry and Meath already there as established Division 1 teams at this stage. Nice handy start for you as well. You're away to Derry in the opening game, and then you have the Dubs coming down to Limerick, so some decent fixtures to look forward to in Division 2.
Yeah, I think whoever's in the fixtures committee didn't really look after us too well, but look, we're going to have to play them at some stage. 2 massive games, like for Dublin to be coming down to Limerick, I suppose will draw a massive crowd. It'll give kids the opportunity to see the likes of Brian Fenton, Kieran Kilkenny. We saw that the weekend. There was Fossa were playing a junior Munster club game, and it's sold out in Castleman. So it's great for the kids of Limerick to see these superstars, all-stars coming to Limerick and playing against the Limerick lads, and it can only promote football in the county. I
know you're a Garda based down in Kerins, South Tip, but it struck me. I remember an interview you did before where you're talking about covering I think it was maybe Tip and Cork playing in Thurles and Sepa Stadium in a hurling match, and you're on duty, and then the following week you're playing a match. So, like, if anything almost personifies and typifies the amateur ethos and nature of the GAA, it's something like that, where you're on duty as a guard at a big match, and then the following week you're playing. Like, it must feel strange at times.
Yeah, I suppose, look, it's it's the choice of the job. You need a few extra guards around Thurles for the big Munster hurling games. I was up there working, and then the following week you're seeing the guards around Killarney doing the same thing that I was doing the week previously in preparation for the football final.
I know lads' heads probably get wrecked walking around. Like, even I'm thinking of yourselves before the Munster final last season. I mean, is it easier for yourself when you're based in somewhere like Kerry, where it's a hurling stronghold, that maybe you don't get the head wrecked as much with people asking questions about, how's the prep for Kerry going this weekend?
Yeah, I suppose, look, most people I work with probably wouldn't. Well, people I work with obviously know I play football for Limerick, but the people you're interacting and dealing with don't. Like, look, I suppose anyone that comes up asking you questions is probably coming from a good spot, but I suppose you can get sick of repeating the same, and so you're giving them cliche answers anyway, so they're not going to get a whole pile from speaking to you, but I suppose it all comes from a good place.
Absolutely. Listen, Iain, great stuff, and really appreciate your time this morning. So Saturday 11th of December you have the Munster football final against Kerry's Kerins O'Rahilly's with yourselves in Newcastle West. So very best of luck, and I'm sure we'll check in after you've got the silverware secured.
Cheers lads, thanks a million.
Good man. Iain Corbett there, the joint Limerick senior football captain.